The great council chamber of Nexus Prime was cold and quiet. The walls showed the colors of 12 different species that formed the Galactic Covenant, a group of civilizations that had lived in peace for 300 years. Misun stood near the large window, looking out at the stars. She was young for a diplomat, only 30 cycles old, and her people, the Asterians, had always been known for their technology and wisdom. She felt something was wrong. The feeling had started 3 weeks ago when the scouts stopped sending messages from the outer regions. The council members sat around a massive table made from crystal stone. The Velkari, proud beings with silver skin and long fingers, sat with their heads held high. The Zorath, ancient creatures who had seen 1,000 years pass, moved slowly in their special chairs that held their weight. The Asterians, including Misun's supervisor, Director Hai-Jun, stood near the technology walls. Everyone waited for the emergency report. The room smelled of burned electronics and fear. A scout named Kyung-il entered the chamber. His uniform was torn, and his face showed the signs of weeks without proper rest. He moved slowly, like someone who had seen things that hurt his mind. Every eye in the room turned toward him. The Velkari commander stood up. "Report," she said, in a voice that sounded like wind through metal. Kyung-il's hands shook as he placed a data crystal into the projection system. Images appeared above the table. They showed a fleet, but not a normal fleet. This was something massive, something that should not exist. The ships were dark and built for war. There were hundreds of them, maybe thousands. Behind them came more ships, and behind those came even more. The crystal showed military formations that moved with perfect order and terrible speed. "The Krell Dominion," Kyung-il said, his voice small and broken. "They have broken through the barrier nebula. All defense stations are gone. All of them." The council chamber became louder than a storm. Everyone spoke at once. The Velkari commander pounded the table. The Zorath elder, Teo, moved slowly forward in his chair, his ancient eyes studying the images. Director Hai-Jun turned to Misun with fear in his face that she had never seen before. "How long until they reach the inner systems?" asked a Asterian council member named Sujin. 3 weeks, Kyung-il answered. "Maybe less. Their ships are faster than anything we have seen. They move like they know where we are, like they have studied us." The Velkari commander looked at the other leaders. "We have fought the Krell before. We defeated them 2 centuries ago. We can do it again. We need to gather our military strength and—" "No," Teo said quietly. His voice was so soft that everyone stopped talking to listen. The ancient Zorath stood up slowly, his old body moving with difficulty. "The Krell who attacked us 200 years ago were a small force. The ones in these images are different. This is their entire military. This is their whole power thrown at us like a weapon." Misun studied the images more carefully. Teo was right. These ships were built differently than the old Krell vessels. They were larger, faster, and they moved with purpose. These were not the ships of a species trying to survive. These were the ships of a species that wanted to win. "We should retreat to the inner worlds," said Minjun, a Velkari general. "Gather our forces there, make them attack us where we are strong." But the images showed something that made this plan impossible. The Krell were not moving toward just one world. They were dividing their fleet, attacking multiple systems at once. 3 different attack groups moved toward 3 different Covenant worlds. Each group was larger than the entire Covenant military fleet. Director Hai-Jun turned pale. His voice became thin and frightened. "We cannot win, not with direct combat. The numbers are wrong. The technology is different. We would lose." For a long moment, no one spoke. The words hung in the cold chamber air like poison. A being could not say such words in the council chamber. It was against everything the Covenant believed. They were the strongest powers in this region of space. They were civilized. They were prepared. They did not lose wars, but Mi-sun could see the truth in the data. Kyung-il's words were not wrong. The Krell would reach their worlds in 3 weeks. The Covenant military would fall. Their people would be conquered or destroyed. The 300 years of peace would end in fire and darkness. "There is a possibility," Mi-sun said. Everyone turned to look at her. She was young, and it was not proper for someone so young to speak in the council. But Director Hae-jun did not stop her. He seemed grateful that someone was offering words, any words that were not words of defeat. "There is an old quarantine zone," she continued. "Beyond the outer markers, the humans. The species from the Sol system." The room became very quiet. The Velkari commander's eyes showed anger. "We do not speak to the humans. They are primitive. They are trapped in their own system by the old barriers. We placed those barriers there 400 years ago for a reason." "They are dangerous," said Sujin. "They fight amongst themselves. They are not civilized like us." But Teo was still looking at the images. The ancient Zorath slowly moved his head toward Mi-sun. "Why do you suggest the humans, young diplomat?" "Because," Mi-sun said, her heart beating very fast, "they have survived. The Krell attacked the outer human colonies 50 years ago. A small Krell force. The humans fought back with old weapons, with ships that were not as advanced as ours. But they won. They destroyed the Krell force and sent the rest away. The Krell do not attack human space anymore." This was true. Mi-sun had read the old reports. Most Covenant members had forgotten about them. But the reports existed. The humans had not been conquered. The humans had not been destroyed. The humans had fought the Krell and won. Director Hae-jun looked at her with new hope in his eyes. "A distress signal. We could send a distress signal to Earth." "They will not come," the Velkari commander said. "Why would they risk their ships for us? We have never helped them. We do not trade with them. We do not speak with them." "Because," Teo said, his ancient voice sounding certain, "they understand something we have forgotten. They understand survival. They understand war. And if there is any species that might do what we cannot do, it would be the ones we called too primitive to matter." Mi-sun looked at the old Zorath. He understood. He saw what the younger council members could not see. Desperation had become their greatest teacher. The Covenant had no hope left, and in that hopelessness, there was only one choice. Director Hae-jun moved to the communication console. "Send the signal," he said. "Send the distress call to Earth. Tell them we need help. Tell them we are willing to discuss anything." The signal traveled across the vast emptiness of space, carrying the Covenant's fear and need toward a distant blue world. None of them knew if it would be heard. None of them knew if humans would respond. But as Kyung-il's images showed the Krell fleet moving closer with each passing hour, hope was something they could no longer afford to ignore. The distress signal reached Earth in 3 days. By standard cosmic time, this was impossibly fast. The humans of Seoul had been developing faster communication methods, but even they had not expected to receive a clear message from the Galactic Covenant. The message came through Earth's Space Command Center in what humans called the Pacific Ocean. Commander Hae-il was standing in the tactical room when the signal arrived. He was a tall man with short gray hair and eyes that showed both kindness and the hard weight of leadership. For 20 years, he had led Earth's Space Force. He had seen things that most humans would not believe. He had fought battles that were not recorded in any official history book. When Hae-il read the Covenant's request, he did not hesitate. He did not ask for permission from the Earth government. He did not wait for meetings or discussions. He simply gathered his best ship, the Valiant Heart, and prepared to leave. His officers looked at him with confusion and surprise. "Sir," said Ji-woo, his tactical officer and one of the finest military minds humanity had produced. She was a woman of 40 years with long, dark hair tied back tightly. We do not know what we will find there. We do not know if this message is real. It could be a trap." Hale looked at her with the same calm that had made him famous throughout Earth's military forces. "The Covenant have controlled this sector for 300 years. They have technology beyond our understanding. If they wanted to trap us, they would not need to send distress signals. They would simply attack us where we orbit. This is real, and they truly need help." Another officer, a woman named Yun-hee, stood near the weapons console. Yun-hee was younger than Ji-woo, perhaps 35 years old, with short hair and a face that showed she had seen combat and was not afraid of it. "Commander, our ship has only 300 people aboard. The Krell fleet in the message showed thousands of ships. How can we possibly help?" "We will find a way," Hyle said simply. "Get the ship ready. We leave in 2 hours." The Valiant Heart traveled faster than anything the Covenant had thought possible. Humans had learned something that the older civilizations had forgotten. Sometimes it was not about having the biggest weapons or the most ships. Sometimes it was about being willing to move quickly when others moved slowly. The human ship jumped through space in ways that made the Covenant sensors show confusion and error. 3 weeks passed, and the Valiant Heart appeared in the contested region of space where the Covenant was making its last stands against the Krell. When the Covenant saw the human ship, there was disappointment. This one small vessel was what had responded to their call. This was supposed to save them? The Velkari commander actually laughed when the human ship entered the secure zone, but Hyle did not care about what the Covenant thought. He sent a message to all Covenant leaders requesting an immediate meeting. Within hours, he was standing in a new conference chamber on a Covenant station that orbited the contested zone. The room was filled with the leaders of the Covenant. Tayo was there, and Mi-sun stood beside him. Director Haijun was there. The Velkari commander was there, along with generals and admirals of all the allied species. Hyle stood before them in his human military uniform. He was not tall compared to some of the aliens, but he seemed to fill the room with presence. "I have read your situation," he said in a voice that was calm and clear. "Your military is failing. Your worlds are being attacked. You expect to lose in 10 days, maybe less. You are asking humanity for help." "Yes," Tayo said slowly. "Can you help us?" Hale did not smile. "First, I need to ask you something. Do you know why the Krell stopped attacking human worlds? Do you know why they left our territory and never came back?" No one answered. "Because," Hale continued, "we did something you have never done. We fought them not by meeting them in open space with our best ships. We fought them by destroying their supply lines. We killed any people who helped them. We showed no mercy to any world that housed their military. We did things that your ethical codes do not allow. And because of this, the Krell decided it was not worth attacking us. We were too costly. We were too dangerous." The Velkari commander looked angry. "You are saying you murdered civilians?" "I am saying," Hyle said, "that we survived. That is what matters." Mi-sun felt something change in the room. The fear was still there, but now there was also understanding. This human was not here to be kind. This human was not here to respect the Covenant's ways. This human was here to win. "What do you need from us?" asked Director Haijun. "Full access to your military records," Hyle said. "Full access to your technology. Full cooperation with my officers. And you must follow my commands without question. If you cannot do these things, then the Valiant Heart will turn around and humans will not return to help you." The room was silent. Then Tayo moved forward in his chair. "We accept your terms." The Velkari commander stood up. "This is unacceptable. We do not take orders from primitives." But before she could say another word, an alarm sounded through the station. The Krell had arrived 3 days earlier than expected. Their fleet was entering the system. 3 large Krell battleships moved toward the station and toward a nearby Covenant military base. Hai-Il turned to Yun-Hee without any show of fear or surprise. It was as if he had known this would happen. "How long until they reach effective firing range?" 8 minutes, sir, Yun-Hee said. Hai-Il nodded. He opened a communication channel to the Valiant Heart. "Send Surgical Strike Protocol Alpha. Target the 3 Krell battleships approaching the station. Full weapons deployment." "Yes, sir," came the answer from the ship. The Covenant leaders moved to the observation windows. They watched as the Valiant Heart, one small human ship, opened fire on the Krell battleships. The weapons were unlike anything the Covenant had seen. The human ship moved with impossible speed and accuracy. One battleship exploded, 2 battleships broke apart in space. The Krell formations scattered in confusion. The entire attack took 40 seconds. The Velkari commander slowly sat down. The Zorath elder Teo looked at Hai-Il with something that might have been fear or might have been understanding. Mi-sun felt her heart beating very fast. She had seen something in those 40 seconds that changed everything. The Covenant had always believed they were the strongest. They had always believed they could win any battle with enough time to prepare. They had been wrong. "That," Hai-Il said calmly, "is what humanity can do. Now let us discuss strategy, and let me explain why the Krell fear us more than they fear all of you combined." As Hai-Il began his briefing, the Covenant military leaders realized they were in the presence of something unexpected. They were in the presence of a species that did not care about honor. They were in the presence of a species that only cared about victory. And for the first time in 300 years, the Covenant felt not safe because of their technology or their size or their ancient wisdom. For the first time, they felt safe because they had called the most dangerous species in the galaxy to their aid. 3 weeks after the Valiant Heart arrived, Earth had sent 10 more ships, then 20 more. The number kept growing. Each ship brought supplies, weapons, and soldiers who were trained in ways that the Covenant did not fully understand. Hai-Il stood in the new command center with Ji-Woo and Yun-Hee. Maps of the war zone covered every wall. Red lines showed where the Krell controlled space. Blue lines showed where the Covenant still held power. The blue areas were getting smaller. "The Krell will attack the Vex system in 2 days, Ji-Woo said, pointing to a location on the star map. "That system produces our strongest metals. If they take it, our ability to build new ships drops by 40%. "We let them take it," Hai-Il said. The Covenant admiral in the room stood up quickly. His name was Sung-Min, and he represented the Velkari military. "That is madness. The Vex system has 2 million civilians living there." "Exactly," Yun-Hee said, and her voice was quiet and clear. She had learned to speak like Hai-Il. She had learned to say things that nobody wanted to hear. "We pull out all military forces from the system. We leave the civilian stations exactly as they are. The Krell will stop to study them, to understand the military setup. While they do this, 3 human ships will destroy their supply ship that waits at the edge of the system. Without supplies, the Krell fleet cannot continue its advance." "But the civilians," Sung-Min began. "The civilians will be captured," Hai-Il said. "Yes, some will be killed. This is the cost of war. But if we try to defend the system with our military, we lose 6 warships, and those civilians are killed anyway, just faster. By giving up the system, we save our ships, and we destroy the Krell supply line. Mathematics, strategy. This is how war is actually won." Mi-sun watched from her position as the Astharian liaison. She saw the pain on Sung-Min's face. She saw the way the other Covenant officers looked at each other with confusion and horror. They had never thought like this. In 300 years of peace, they had forgotten what real war meant. They had forgotten that victory sometimes required sacrifice that would seem too terrible to accept. The battle went exactly as Hai-Il predicted. The Krell attacked Vex. The Covenant withdrew its ships. The civilian population was captured. But 3 human warships destroyed the Krell supply vessel, and the Krell fleet stopped advancing. For the first time in months, the momentum of the war shifted. "Genius and cruelty," Teo said to Mi-sun as they watched the reports come in. The ancient Zorath was sitting alone in a quiet chamber, looking out at the stars. The humans have combined two things that we have never mixed. Every military victory in Covenant history has been achieved by being smarter or stronger than our enemies. But the humans are smarter, stronger, and willing to do things that we would call evil. This is what makes them dangerous. This is what makes them unstoppable. More weeks passed, and the human strategies became more complex and more terrible. In one battle, Hai-Il ordered the destruction of an entire asteroid that held a Krell supply depot. But the asteroid was also home to a small Covenant research station. 75 Covenant scientists died so that the Krell would lose supplies for 2 weeks. The Covenant admiral asked why Hai-Il had not warned them to evacuate. Hai-Il's answer was simple. A warning would have given the Krell time to move their supplies to a safer location. The deaths of 75 scientists is acceptable compared to the loss of military advantage. The words sounded like the words of a monster, but the words were true. The Covenant was winning because humans thought differently about the value of life and the meaning of victory. In another battle, Ji-Woo created a strategy that used Covenant military formation as a shield for human attack ships. The Covenant ships would charge at the Krell in a traditional formation, and the humans would use them as cover to launch surprise attacks from unexpected angles. 3,000 Covenant soldiers died in that battle. So did only 200 humans. The battle was won. The Krell retreated. Sung-min asked Ji-Woo how she had calculated that the Covenant would accept 3,000 casualties. Ji-Woo looked at him with genuine confusion. Because the alternative was defeat. Would you rather have 3,000 soldiers die fighting and win, or have 3,000 soldiers die when the Krell destroyed your worlds completely? The logic was perfect, and it was also perfectly heartless. Yeon-hee became famous among the soldiers for her personal bravery and her complete lack of fear when sending soldiers into impossible situations. She would stand at the front of attacks. She would lead missions that should not have succeeded. She survived 3 times by sheer luck when she should have died. The soldiers who served under her either loved her completely or hated her completely. There was no middle ground. Mi-sun spent time with Yoon-hee one evening, sitting in the small observation room on a human warship. "Do you ever feel anything when soldiers die?" Mi-sun asked. Yoon-hee was quiet for a long time. "Of course I feel something. I am human. But feeling sad does not change what must be done. Feeling guilty does not make soldiers alive again. So I feel the feeling, and then I forget it, and I do what must be done next. This is how humans survive." The war lasted 6 months. The Krell were driven back. Their fleet broke apart. Their worlds were threatened. They sent a communication offering to leave Covenant space forever if they were allowed to keep 3 systems that they had conquered. Hai-Il wanted to refuse and destroy them completely. But the Covenant leaders, especially Teo, convinced him to accept the offer. The war was over. The Covenant had survived. The Krell were gone. The 300 years of peace had ended, but the civilization had not fallen. Mi-sun should have felt happy. Instead, she felt something more complicated. The Covenant was alive because they had brought in the humans. The Covenant was alive because they had been willing to accept terrible strategies and terrible sacrifices. But now, the humans were not leaving. Their ships remained. Their soldiers remained. And Hai-Il was looking at the maps with an expression that showed he was thinking about the future. A future that did not include the Covenant being independent. A future that included humans being in charge. Mi-sun finally understood what she had been too blind to see from the beginning. The Covenant had not called for help from the humans because they were desperate. They had called for help from the humans because they were calling in the one thing that could change everything. And now that the humans were here, they would never leave. Because now the humans had seen this region of space, and humans did not give back anything they had seen and decided they wanted. 3 months after the war ended, a human officer named Yejin came to Mi-sun with a proposal. Yejin was young, perhaps only 25 years old, with bright eyes and a serious expression. She had been assigned to work with the Covenant diplomatic team, and over time, she and Mi-sun had become something like friends. Yejin suggested that Mi-sun should meet with a young Velkari scholar named Mina. The meeting would be informal, just a conversation between two young beings trying to understand each other. Mi-sun agreed because she had started to feel lonely. Nobody in the Covenant leadership seemed to speak to her anymore. They saw her as the one who had brought the humans. They blamed her for everything that had changed. Mina was sitting in a small garden room when Mi-sun arrived. The Velkari scholar was beautiful in the way that Velkari were beautiful, with silver skin that seemed to hold light and long fingers that moved gracefully, but her eyes showed sadness and confusion. "I wanted to meet with you," Mina said, "because Yejin told me that you were the one who first suggested contacting the humans. I wanted to understand why you did this. I wanted to understand if you knew what would happen." Mi-sun sat across from her. "I did not know. I could only see that the Krell would destroy us. The humans were the only option that seemed to offer any hope." "Hope," Mina said the word slowly, like it was poison. "The humans have destroyed everything that made us who we are. Look at what has happened since the war ended. The humans have created military bases on 17 of our worlds. They are training our soldiers to fight like they fight. They are teaching our children in human schools. They are building a government structure where humans hold the highest positions of power." Mi-sun felt something cold move through her body. She had known these things were happening. She had tried not to think about them. "But the Krell are gone," Mi-sun said. "We are alive. The humans saved us." "Did they?" Mina looked directly into her eyes. "I have been reading the classified human communications, the ones that Yejin had access to and shared with me. Do you know what Hai-Il said to his commanders when the war ended? He said, 'The Covenant is now ours. They do not know it yet, but they belong to humanity now. We will wait 1 generation, and then we will take complete control. By that time, their own children will believe they are human.' This is not salvation, Mi-sun. This is occupation. This is the replacement of one people with another." Mi-sun stood up. She wanted to leave. She wanted to tell Mina that this was impossible, that this could not be true. But she knew it was true. Deep in her heart, she had always known it was true. "Where did you get this information?" Mi-sun asked. "Yejin felt guilty," Mina said. "She is human, and she felt guilty about what her people are doing, so she showed me the truth. Now I am showing you. The question is what you will do with this knowledge." Mi-sun found Hai-Il standing in an observation chamber, looking out at a Covenant world below. The planet was beautiful, with blue waters and green lands. Hai-Il was looking at it like he was looking at a prize he had won. "Is it true?" Mi-sun asked, without any greeting or politeness. "Are the humans planning to take control of the Covenant after the war?" Hai-Il did not seem surprised by the question. He continued looking at the planet. "Yes," he said. "It is true." The simple honesty was somehow more shocking than any denial would have been. "But we saved you," Mi-sun said. "You came to us when we asked for help. You asked us for cooperation and we gave you everything. You promised that you would help us survive." "And we did help you survive," Hai-Il said, turning to face her. "The Krell would have destroyed you completely. They would have killed every one of your people and taken your worlds. We changed that. We saved you. And yes, we are now going to rebuild your civilization in our image. Is this wrong?" "Yes," Mi-sun said. "Why?" Hai-Il asked. His voice was not cruel. It was genuinely curious, like a teacher asking a student to explain her thinking. The Covenant was 300 years old. In that time, you created nothing truly new. You built on what you found from older civilizations. You lived in comfort and peace and believed that this was forever. You were weak and fragile, and the universe showed you that comfort is not a reality for anyone. Humans will create something different, something stronger, something that survives not because of luck, but because of will. You are destroying us, Misun said. Yes, Hail said, but you would have been destroyed anyway. The Krell would have been faster about it, but you would have been destroyed. At least this way, your destruction has meaning. Your people will become something new. Your children will be stronger than you were. This is how evolution works. This is how species grow. Misun felt tears on her face. She did not remember starting to cry. The Covenant trusted you, and the Covenant was wise to trust us, Hail said. We did exactly what we said we would do. We ended the Krell threat. We did not lie about our ability to help you. We simply did not tell you the full price of that help. This is how humans do business. We deliver results. The cost is a separate discussion. When Misun left Hail's chamber, she went to find Teo. The ancient Zorath was in the old council chamber, sitting alone among the crystal stones that showed the symbols of the 12 species. He was looking at a symbol that represented the humans. But humans had not been part of the Covenant. The symbol was new. It had been added only recently. You knew, Misun said. You knew what would happen. Yes, Teo said without looking at her. I knew. And you allowed it anyway? Teo slowly turned his ancient head toward her. I am 2,000 years old, Misun. In that time, I have seen many civilizations rise and fall. I have seen species that were strong become weak, and species that were weak become strong. I have learned one truth that overrides all others. Survival is the only thing that matters. Everything else is philosophy. The Covenant will not survive as it was. That is certain. The question was only whether we would survive at all. Now we will survive, but in a different form. In 100 years, perhaps our children will not remember that they were ever Astharians or Velkari or Zorath. They will remember that they are part of something new. They will remember that they are human. And perhaps they will be happy. Perhaps they will be safer. Perhaps this is better than we deserve. Misun sat down beside the old being. She did not know if what was happening was right or wrong. She knew only that there was no turning back. The humans were here. The Covenant's independence was gone. The future would be written by species that thought about survival the way humans did. The future would be written in blood and strategy and hard choices that the Covenant would never have made on their own. And the worst part was that Teo was right. Without the humans, there would be no future at all. 1 year after the Covenant called for help, something unexpected happened. The Krell returned, not as a force trying to conquer, but as a force with one final mission. They had learned that humans were now defending Covenant space, and they had decided that their only chance was to destroy the human military presence before it became too strong. A massive fleet appeared on the sensors. It was larger than the first invasion force. The Krell were bringing everything they had left. Hail studied the information with perfect calm. He was preparing for this moment all along. He had been building human military strength while the Covenant debated and worried. Now the human fleet had grown to 100 ships. The Covenant military, which had once been strong, was now serving under human command. Yun He was a human general now, leading mixed human and Covenant forces. Ji Woo had become the head of all tactical operations. They were ready. The Battle of the Shattered Ring happened at a location that had been destroyed during the first invasion. The name came from the remains of a massive space station that had been broken into 1,000 pieces by old wars. The Krell fleet moved toward Covenant space, and the human and Covenant forces moved to meet them. But the way they met was nothing like the traditional battles the Covenant understood. The human ships did not arrange themselves in lines or formations. They moved in patterns that seemed almost random to observers who did not understand the strategy. The Covenant ships formed the outer perimeter of the defense. They were slower and less advanced, but they were numerous. Behind them moved the human ships, faster and more deadly. The Krell attacked with the force of everything they had. Thousands of weapons fired at once. The Covenant outer line took heavy damage. 3 large Covenant warships broke apart in space. 4 more were disabled, but the Krell weapons fire had to pass through the Covenant ships to reach the humans. This meant the humans had time to attack without being noticed. Yoon-hee led 12 human warships directly into the Krell formation. They moved too fast to be tracked accurately by Krell targeting systems. 1 human ship exploded, then another. But the human weapons were precise and deadly. They found the command ships in the Krell fleet. They destroyed the ships that held supplies. They disabled the ships that provided communications. Within 30 minutes, the Krell fleet was no longer operating as one unified force. It had become 100 separate battles happening at the same time. Ji-woo watched the battle from the command center. She was calling out orders with a voice that showed no emotion and no fear. Human Squadron 7, move to coordinates marked. Target the Krell medical ships. Human Squadron 4, break formation and hit the power generators on the battleship at point 7. Covenant fleet, hold your position. Do not advance. You are the shield. Let us be the weapon. The Covenant admiral watching this battle, a Velkari named Song-hee, felt something between admiration and horror. She was watching her own forces use themselves as tools for the human military machine. But she could also see that this was working. The Krell were losing. The Krell were breaking. The Krell were dying. Hae-il moved through the battle with the same focus he had shown in every conflict. He was not afraid. He was not even excited. He was doing his job. After 3 hours of combat, the Krell fleet was destroyed. Some ships tried to flee, and human vessels chased them down and destroyed them. Others surrendered, and human soldiers boarded them and captured the Krell commanders. The Battle of the Shattered Ring lasted 6 hours. The Krell lost 472 ships. The Covenant lost 43 ships. The humans lost 8 ships. In the old Covenant military calculations, this would have been a success earned through brilliant tactics and superior positioning. But it was also a clear demonstration of what everyone already knew. Without the humans, the Covenant would have been defeated in the first 10 minutes of battle. When the smoke cleared and the fires went out, something fundamental had changed in the minds of the Covenant leaders. They were not independent beings fighting for their survival anymore. They were allies of a more powerful force, and soon they would be something else entirely. Within days, Hae-il called a council meeting. It was similar to the meeting that had happened months before, but this time the situation was reversed. The humans were no longer asking for permission or cooperation. They were announcing decisions. Hae-il stood before the Covenant leaders with Commander Ji-woo and General Yoon-hee standing beside him. "The Krell threat is ended," Hae-il said. "We have established complete military control of this region. Now we must establish permanent government control. I am announcing the creation of the Human Protected Sphere. All worlds that were part of the Covenant will now be governed by a new system. Human administrators will work alongside Covenant leaders, but final decision-making authority will rest with humans." Sung-min tried to stand and protest, but Hae-il continued speaking before she could say anything. "The Covenant has 2 choices. Accept the new government structure and remain part of this growing human-led civilization, or reject the new structure and be isolated. If you are isolated, you will receive no military protection. You will receive no trade advantages. You will be left alone to face the universe with the military strength you currently have. I believe most of you know what that means." Teo stood up slowly. The ancient Zorath did not look angry or sad. He looked accepting. He looked like someone who had seen this ending coming from the beginning of time. "The Zorath accept your terms," Teo said. "We will cooperate with the new government." One by one, the others agreed. Even Sungmin agreed, though the words seemed to break something inside her. By the end of the meeting, every Covenant species had accepted that their independence was gone. They had accepted that humans would now be in charge. Later that evening, Mi-sun stood in an observation room looking out at the stars. She felt empty, like something had died inside her. She had saved her people from the Krell, but in doing so, she had destroyed what made them her people. The Covenant was no longer the Covenant. It was becoming something new, something human. Director Hai-jun came and stood beside her. He had aged a lot in the past year. His face showed the weight of all the things that had happened. "Do you regret what you did?" he asked. "Every day," Mi-sun said, "but not because the Krell would have been better, just because I wish there had been another choice." "There was never another choice," Hai-jun said quietly. "There was only this choice, or no choice at all. At least we are still alive to see what comes next." Mi-sun thought about the future. She thought about the children of the Covenant who would be born in the next generation. They would learn human languages before they learned their own. They would study human history and human values. In 100 years, perhaps even the memory of the Covenant would be lost. Perhaps even she and Hai-jun and everyone else who remembered independence would be forgotten. But at least there would be a future. At least her people would survive to become something different. At least the stars would continue to shine, even if the light they cast belonged to humans now instead of to the civilizations that had come before. The war was finally over. The battle was won. The Covenant had been saved and destroyed at the same time, and in the darkness of space, the human flag now flew above the worlds that had once been independent.